begun. So it's the golden age of America, and that's what it's going to be. And we hope we don't have any intervening problems, because things happen.
Can I hear that again?
Intervening problems, because things happen.
Now, to those who have ears to hear can clearly hear that something is coming. For those who have wisdom can pick up what Mr. Golden Age is laying down. And this Golden Age terminology is very New Age. As we can see right here, the Golden Age, Aquarius, and the Ring Planet. And this is coming from the official Theosophical Society website. Now, for those who do not know what Theosophy is, it is a religious and philosophical system established in the United States in the late 19th century. It was founded primarily by the Russian Helena Blavatsky and based largely on her writings. It draws heavily from both old European philosophies, such as Neoplatonism, and Indian religions, such as Hinduism and Buddhism. And as we can see down here, it is clumped in with new religious movements and form of occultism. Now, the founder of the Theosophical Society, or should I say the co-founder, is Helena Blavatsky, a Russian and American mystic and author who co-founded the Theosophical Society in 1875. This Theosophical Society loves to talk about the Golden Age, where you also had Alice Bailey, who was an author about 25 books on theosophy and among the first writers to use the term New Age, who directly speaks about the prophecy of the Golden Age and the reappearance of the Christ. Now, her writings between 1919 and 1949 describe a wide-ranging neo-theosophical system of esoteric thought covering such topics as how spirituality relates to the solar system, meditation, healing, spiritual psychology, and destiny of nations, and prescriptions for society in general. Now, get this, she described the majority of her work as having been telepathically dictated to her by a master of wisdom, initially referred to only as the Tibetan. Now, her writings bore the same similarities of those of Blavatsky. So through meditation and esoteric spirituality, they were channeling these ascended masters, where one of Alice Bailey's writings was about the reappearance of the Christ, which there will be a dawning upon the awakening consciousness of humanity. Sound familiar? X, the group chat, Collective Conscious of Earth. Now, this reappearance of the Christ was prophesied to happen in the year 2025, as we can see down here coming from Lucis Trust, which used to be Lucifer Trust, which was founded by Alice Bailey. And we can see right here, 2025 is a Jubilee year in the Christian and Jewish calendar that is also the focus of prophecy. And students of the writings of Alice Bailey know that the year 2025 is anticipated to be of vital spiritual significance. And according to her teachings, this hierarchy consists of ascended masters and spiritual entities guiding humanity's evolution. Bailey claimed that these beings hold a significant meeting every 100 years with their human agents, with the next major and final General Assembly scheduled for 2025. Now, something else I found interesting is how on January 20th, 2025, we have a start date for Aquarius, which we can see down here. Aquarius season is a time when people are encouraged to embrace their individuality, thinking outside the box, and advocate for positive change in their communities and the world. It's a season that celebrates uniqueness and collective consciousness. Where do we see that before? So all of this coming together at the same time that Mr. Golden Dawn is ushering in the Golden Age.
Continuing on with these notes, the Golden Age of Saturn's America. A number of researchers have suggested in mythology Saturn is at times referred to as a night sun, and having gone through a nova-like phase. That is why the final phase, or the final great reset of the various world ages, ends within Fomalhaut, Pisces Austrinus, the southern fish. And of course that links with Aquarius, links with the age of man. It begins and ends with man. All of these various world ages. It's almost like the Osiris spindle. It's a continual loop that we constantly go round. But of course, to ensure that we never truly learn anything from the loops, at the end of every great reset, everything goes digital, it goes electrical, electronic, and then of course, everything gets completely wiped, totally wiped. So all knowledge, all accumulated lessons from that loop get lost in that loop, and then it begins once more from Aquarius to Scorpio. So when you see the circle and it has been quartered by the cross in the centre of it, essentially that's what it's referring to. These grand cycles, which of course is the precessional cycle. Again, give or take 25,920 years. So in 1944, C.E.R. Bruce wrote, quote, "In fact, it may well be that both Jupiter and Saturn were at one time minor stars and that their satellite systems were formed as the result of minor or planetary nova outbursts," unquote. 1973, William Mullen wrote, quote, "Velikovsky has suggested that as a result of disruption, Saturn went through a short nova-like phase in which its light would have obscured everything else visible from Earth," unquote. 1975, Louis M. Greenberg and Warner B. Sizemore wrote, quote, "The planet Saturn was designated as Shamash, or Sun, by the Assyro-Babylonian astrologers, and as far back as 1910, M. Jastrow, Revue d'Astrologie, Volume 70, page 171, proposed, quote, "The idea that Saturn was a steady or permanent mock sun, performing the same function of furnishing light at night, Shamash as the sun performed during the day. Furthermore, there is undeniable evidence that the concept of a night sun, as well as a day sun, existed in ancient Babylonian astrological thought," unquote. 1977, Eduardo Cardona wrote, quote, "Diodorus Siculus was not the only writer of antiquity who stated that the Babylonians called Saturn the sun star. Hyginus also expressed his opinion that Saturn was called the star of the sun. Among modern Assyriologists, it seems as if Thompson was one of the first to notice that the Babylonians designated the planet Saturn as Shamash, yet Shamash, as a cursory glance through any work on Assyro-Babylonian mythology will show, was very much like the Egyptian Ra, the usual Babylonian name for the sun," unquote. 1979, Manuel Velikovsky wrote, quote, "My conclusion that, as a result of its interplay with Jupiter, Saturn became a nova, I found confirmed in many ancient sources, in which Saturn is regularly associated with brilliant light, but I was led to this idea, first of all, by a certain clue contained in the biblical account of the deluge," unquote. 1984, David Talbot and Ev Cochrane wrote, quote, "It is understood that Velikovsky believed the Earth and Saturn to have once moved in close proximity, with the Earth perhaps revolving as a Saturnian moon. The Saturn myth proposes that Saturn, fixed at the celestial pole, loomed massively overhead, a central sun venerated by all mankind. Evidence is presented there for a Saturnian polar configuration as the source of early civilizations' dominant symbols," unquote. A collinear model of the Saturn, Venus, Mars, Earth, as depicted in the tablet of Shamash, where we see sitting above Shamash, or the sun, is the deific symbols for Venus, the moon, and the black sun, sulfur, salt, Mercury, and Mercurius. That system is shared by several researchers, including David Talbot and Eduardo Cardona. Fred Yuneman has jocularly described it as a planetary shish kebab. Talbot describes, quote, "The polar configuration as I have come to visualize it involves 3 planets, Earth, Mars, and Saturn, rotating on a common axis extending out or down from Jupiter or up. The ideas are relative," unquote. And as you can see here, this is the dragon symbolism and its association with Saturn, along with The Economist's The World Ahead 2025, displaying at its apex that of the planets of Saturn. Moreover, as well, as you can see, Saturn has this continual loop in his hand, along with the vestments and tools and accoutrements of the harvesting, the tilling of the soil, the harvesting, and the perpetuation of the cycles. Now, as you can see, that SpaceX, that I believe it's called the Dragon Shuttle or something along those lines, that is to go to Mars, or to explore Mars, and prior to colonization, of course, which is this lauded and sought after desire by Elon Musk. Now, even the name Elon Musk, Elon means oak in Hebrew, and moreover as well, Elon is a compound. The El, which is of course linked with Saturn, and On, which is, as I've mentioned previously, that transliteration of Heliopolis, the city of the sun, the most famous and, arguably the most religious centre in the land of Kem in ancient Egypt. And it was also known as Yawen or Yaunu, which of course sounds very much like the Tetragrammaton of Yahweh. And anyway, that means the pillars. So the pillars relates to Kabbalah, who also self-describes as the 3-column or 3-pillar system. Boaz and Yakin, which of course are the lunar entrance and exit from this world, this eternal, perpetual loop, this cyclical world of purgatory, all the way to, of course, the central pillar, which is Saturn. So that is the Saturn-moon matrix. That is what you're seeing there. And of course, if you were to view that from a bird's eye view, those 3 pillars would create a triangular formation, which of course you see at the top of the Eye of Providence, on the back, or encompassing rather the Eye of Providence, on the back of the dollar bill. What you see the triangle, and then so the 2 pillars plus the 3rd one in the middle, and right in the middle of that you have the Eye of Providence, the AI. That is exactly the system that they desire to manifest, to digitally manifest the Lord of all things within the internet of all things. And of course the dragon symbolism links with Saturn. This can be most acutely seen within the vision of Poimandres by Hermes. Poimandres is the shepherd of man, that's what it means within Greek. And ultimately, this green dragon of Poimandres is the dragon of Saturn. It is the final obstacle that Hermes has to overcome, and he does so in a solemn, dutiful, and respectful manner. And of course the SpaceX as well. That X is the Tav. It is the Tav. But you'll notice the way that the X is shaped. The X that is going from bottom left to top right, it's creating sort of the outline, a very microcosmic view of the spherical form of Saturn. And then the X going from top left to bottom right is creating the ring, right? But again, it's a very narrow view of it. And we also see with Elon Musk's Grok AI, and of course he has this symbol emblazoned all over his X account, his Twitter account, and it is Saturn essentially. It's the black hole, the black sun of Saturn, and he is constantly talking about the Novus Ordo Seclorum, when Trump got into office, the golden age, the dawn of the golden age and all of this. Of course you have Donald Trump, the golden dawn, as well. But Saturn, it's a sort of play on words. It means the sword. It comes from a Latin word, sator. That is of course seen on the Sator square. Sator repotenet opera rotas. The exoteric view of it, the exoteric translation would be, He who is without knowledge of good or evil, that's the arepo. It could be the Sanskrit arepas. So the sower, the divine sower, he who is without knowledge of good or evil, or who is beyond good and evil, maintains the wheel, the momentum of the wheel, vis-a-vis skill and manipulation. This also links with Saturn's, or Kronos's, appellation, his famous appellation, which was Anglometes, where we get the word angle from, right? It is the crooked one. He who plots things within the shadows, the father of the conspiracy. This also links with the Book of Enoch and Shamyaza. Literally from Hebrew, he who stares at the stars, it stares at heaven. So ultimately, that links back with Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth was cast out of the Pleroma into the Kinoma, and he established this mimicry of the Kinoma, almost seeking after his own god, seeking after his own, home that he had fallen from. Again, in a similar manner, like man himself. Now, either man is Yaldabaoth or the Demiurge, or merely we are made in his image. And Elon Musk, the reason he is constantly mentioning that the sun will destroy us, destroy everything on Earth, and we must reach Mars. Essentially, that is esoteric symbolism itself. What he is meaning by that is that Saturn is the night sun. The dark night of the soul is coming. It is the malefic aspect of the sun. It is the sun within the underworld when it, goes into that sunset, right? It goes into the Ra set, the reset, right? The Ra, which is, of course, the Kemetic or ancient Egyptian deity of the sun, and its daytime apical state of summer as well. And then Set, which is the god of darkness, the god of decay, the god, even you could say, of not necessarily the underworld, but the god who drives the boat through the underworld, almost the ferryman. I believe for Ra, actually, and he spears a pep within the underworld. So ultimately, what you're seeing there is Saturn is the perpetuator of the cycles, like Set, but he is not necessarily totally evil. He's of chaos, yes, he's of negation, but he's not purely evil. He doesn't want to just destroy, right, in that sense. He wants to perpetuate, which itself arguably is just as bad, but again, that's a debate we could have. But the reason that he's mentioned that the sun that will destroy everything, he's talking about Saturn. Saturn, in its malefic aspect of the sun in the underworld, the night sun, the black sun, will destroy everything. We need to reach Aries. We need to reach the beginning once more of the cycle. It's not that he actually wants to colonize Mars. That is absurd. That's just the complete exoteric basis of the symbolism. What he's talking about is essentially what you see in the Splendor Solace. The final plate is the sun re-emerging within its rubeda state, its reddened state, the philosopher's stone, if you will, the elixir vitae, which is that the cycles never end. That's the elixir vitae, the elixir of life, of eternal life. It is that life never really ends. Even if you end, even if the world as you know it ends, the world will just continue anew once more, because it is in a negative feedback loop. It can never end. The sun, like the Ouroboros serpent, eats itself, digests itself, gives birth to itself. It's self-perpetuating, self-regulating, autopoietic. And you see there, that red is of Aries. The entire land has been made barren, and Aries emerges once more as the fiery momentum of the fool, leaping over the precipice, unaware, staring at the new dawn, giving birth, consecrating once more the cycle of this world, of this purgative realm. That is exactly what you're seeing there. And these individuals, all of them, there is no difference between geopolitical entities like China, Russia, the USA, Britain. All of the differences are mere theatre. But of course, if you're watching this video, you already know that. But what you're seeing is that these individuals they're in a sort of eschatological cult. The cult is the cult of the final redemption, right? They believe that this is the Great Reset, that we will never have to have these resets anymore after this, that we will either control the material world or transcend it, and this is the promise that has been provided to them. Of course, it's a massive lie. It's a lie that perpetuates itself throughout every cycle. The chosen people within any cycle are lied to. They're provided a false promise of world dominion and, of course, transcendence of this mundane sphere through being helped along up the fatal slope of transcendence. It will never happen. It's just a mere carrot on the stick, right? This system, this entire realm, is a realm of carrots on the stick. That's it. Even at the bottom, rungs of the ladder of this system of hierarchy and concentrically formulated hierarchy, we are all chasing carrots on sticks. We will never reach the carrot. That's the whole point of the system. This is written into the structure, the fabric, the very nature of the horizon itself. It is unknowable. It is unchartable. It is unreachable. And, of course, it is always omnipresent. Wherever we turn, wherever we go, we will always have the horizon, the constantly, I guess you could say, procedurally generated confines of the realm in which we reside in. Because of inflation, the majority of people will never reach a comfortable retirement. So this is how this system functions. So this is how this system works. It saps your energy upon the rat race, upon the hamster wheel, by lies. By pure, bold-faced lies. So just to continue on, the midway between the Tav and Aleph, and that's also where this X comes in, by the way. The X is the Tav. It's the final letter of the Hebrew alphanumeric system, or alphabet, as we would know it. It is, in essence, the finality. Again, the Mars, the Aries, the red sun. The 22nd plate of the Splendor Solace is the red sun. It is Aries. It is the hope, or the promise, of the elixir vitae that the cycles will never end. That the Ouroboros, though it will eat itself, it will digest itself, and it will give birth to itself again. So what you're seeing is essentially putrefaction. Putra, decay, factio, to make. So it is ordo ab chaos, order from out of chaos. Life out of waste. By the way, this is what you see from George Hodel, who was both the Zodiac killer, most likely, and I mean, I'm totally convinced that he was also the, the Jigsaw Killer, Lipstick Murderer, and also, of course, famously, the Black Dahlia Slayer, or Killer. And that entire event, all of the various filmographic and artistic inspirations that George Hodel had, all pointed to the same idea that you're seeing within Kabbalah, right? But he mentioned that within his final sort of cryptic message to his son. He mentioned that life is excreto. Life is waste. Life is death. Or life is shit. It's also what George Bataille cottoned onto as well. Ultimately, what you're seeing is the continual sacrifice of the sun to then beget a new sun. This is what is meant by the son of the sun. The son of 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 the son. Right? The son is like the father. The son is the son. Are you getting it yet? This is, of course, as well, what we see with Yahweh himself, and you can trace him all the way back to, of course, the Asuras, and that links with the Surya, which is the sun, and the A prefix in Sanskrit is the negative. So essentially, Asuras are those not of the sun, amongst a myriad of other potential etymological roots and meanings. So ultimately what you're seeing there is the Asuras are the ones of the negative or black sun, those of Saturn, right? Those who are essentially the harvesters, as opposed to the sowers and tillers and growers, right? Those are the ones who do the dirty work. Those who essentially take in the harvest vis-a-vis the scythe. Then, of course, the violent separation of the wheat from the chaff. And then you can trace that Asura connection to Ahura, and then, of course, when it's went from Iran all the way, and the Hindu Kush, all the way to the Western Asia, within what we know now as Syria, but what was known back then as Amuru and Phoenicia, where essentially the Amorites were based, the basis point of the Semitic nation, the genesis point, the homeland of the Semitic peoples. The Amuru province, the Amuru kingdom, home to the Amorites, or simply just the Amuru as they called themselves too, that was named theophorically, so it was named after a deity. The deity was Bel Amuru. What does that mean? Well, really, Bel Amuru, in its earlier rendition, was Bel Amarutu. That means Lord, Bel, Lord. Amar means bull calf, or literally son of, right? Son of the sun. Utu, or Utu Shamash. Shamash was the Akkadian term for the sun. Utu was the Sumerian term for the sun. So Amarutu, or simply just Amuru, was the bull calf of the sun god, the son of the sun. So ultimately, Amarutu or Amuru, literally just the Lord, eventually got abbreviated to just simply Bel and then Baal, and of course Adon and Adonai, and then later on Aten, and Yahweh eventually, and all of the various appellations that go along with him. They were all linked back to this god of the mountains, this Bel Shaddai, as he was known in Acadia, as well as Amuru. That was another appellation of his. That eventually became El Shaddai in the Old Testament. That was the first name that Abraham knew God by. And this Lord of the mountains, why the mountain? Well, the mountain because that is where the threshing floor was located. When you got the harvest, you would take it up to the mountain, and you would, of course, violently separate the wheat from the chaff. But because the wind blew on the mountain, it would carry the lighter chaff away and leave the heavier grain. So there was a separation through the element of the air. The heavens would help in the harvest, if you will, the heavens being linked with the air. So this is why you see Satan known as the Prince of the Air and things such as that. Essentially what you're seeing there is that the Prince of the Air is the Prince of the Harvest. Lilith, which goes back to the Hebrew Lilitu and the Akkadian, arguably the entire Pan-Sumerian term Lilitu, which was a deity or a category of demons. So this category of demons were the demons of the air, and Enlil was the lord of the air within Sumeria. So what you're seeing there is ultimately that these deities were associated with everything from abortion to child sacrifice to, every sort of negative aspect of human life, which usually resulted or was linked, to death. So this is why Enlil was he who tried to drown, according to the Sumerian myths, tried to drown the entirety of humanity because they were making too much noise. They were too overpopulated. He couldn't get any sleep, he couldn't get any peace. So he tried to drown them all in a great deluge. Where have we heard that before, right? It was reiterated in the Bible, of course. However, Enki, the Lord of the Earth, helped Atrasis. He also goes by a myriad of other terms and names. He tried to assist Atrasis in building an ark. Atrasis means the most wise, by the way, in Sumerian. He tried to assist him in building an ark so that he could survive the flood. And of course he was successful in that endeavour. And it was the progeny of Atrasis, or the Sumerian Noah, who went on to birth all of the other nations. Again, just like the Old Testament. But you've seen this before as well, within, of course, the Matrix. Whenever Zion is reset, and it's been reset, 5 times previously, according to the architect, that whenever it is reset, you will always have a small number of females and males to begin the process once more. Now, Zion itself, why was that chosen as the name? Well, of course, it's linked to the Kabbalistic utopian idealism of Zion, but Zion itself is a compound of 2 words, Sia, which is the desert or the barren land, which of course links with Set, who was the deity of the barren land and desert, and On, which is the transliteration, as I've mentioned, Heliopolis, the city of the sun, and also as well Yawen or Yanu, which were the pillars. So Zion itself means holy pillars of the barren land. What it's essentially stating is that even after each successive harvest, when the land is, laid barren, and all of the souls have been completely liquidated, eradicated, and the wicked are purged from the earth, according to the Zohar, that there will always remain this system, the gates, the lunar gates, and the solar phallus, or pillar. Of course, as well, the gates are also likened to the symbol of the womb. This is the hexagram. You will always have the solitary phallus, the solitary column of Saturn, who is the father of the matrix, and you will have the lunar gates, the lunar womb, who is, of course, the mother of the matrix. The father and mother combined establish, of course, the hexagrammatic confines of this world, of the cube itself. Because remember, that hexagram, or that hexagon rather, that you're seeing within the center of the hexagram is itself an isometric view of the cube, just in a hidden form. And that same isometric view, with its linear formation, actually forms a sort of double arcing wave form, wave pattern. And of course, if you count it, it's 7 in number, because it's the 7 chakras. Saturn is the 7th planet. You have, of course, the 7 candles on the menorah. I mean, so on and so forth. You can just keep going through all of the connections here. It's endless with 7, and of course, 7 itself. If you divide any number that isn't a multiple of 7 by 7, you will always get the Capricorn sequence in its decimalized form, and ultimately that is 0.142857. Now, that sequence omits the integers of 3, 6, and 9, because ultimately what it's stating to you is that it omits the 3, 6, and 9, which are the higher principles, which are the self-sustaining principles, which are the heavenly numbers. If you look at the Enneagram, you'll see that both 1 and 2 create 3, that's on one side. 7 and 8, of course, create 15. That is on another side, that's on the left-hand side. 15, 1 plus 5 is 6, 3, 6, and then right at the bottom, 5 and 4. So 5 plus 4 is 9, 3, 6, and 9. What it's telling you is that Saturn as the 7, and the 7 itself is a sort of elemental vibration, an expression of a frequency, is in essence that of the artificial. It divides, well, for example, the 3 is divided into its components of the 1 and the 2, right? The double arcing of that. The life, in a similar manner, it's the yin and the yang, the life and the death. At one point in time, life and death were singular, in pure harmonious singularity, before they were cleaved in twain by the demiurge, if you will, Saturn, that archetype of creation, or recreation in this sense, right? The establishing of a trap of purgatory. Now, a soul trap, if you will. So, what you're seeing there, the 3 is that is divided into its components of the 1 and the 2. The 6 is divided into the 8 and the 7, which itself adds to 15, which itself is 1 plus 5 equals 6. And then you have the 9, which is divided into and then you have the 9, which is divided into its components of the 5 and the 4. What you're seeing is Saturn itself can only create vis-a-vis dividing things into a falsehood of choice, which is exactly what you see with the Oracle in the Matrix. Now, how does that link with the moon? Well, if Saturn is the single column, the apex, the capstone of the pyramid or the triangle, then of course remember the 2 pillars of the moon, the entrance and exit way from this world, the wormhole gate of wisdom, if you will, the womb, that itself it's 2 in number, it's 2 pillars, because it's Saturn itself dividing its own essence into that duality. It is like what is stated in Isaiah 45:7. Quote, This is Yahweh speaking. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. The Lord, I do all of these things. What you're seeing is exactly that Saturn-moon matrix. The triangle, the generative symbol, the pyramid. Saturn, through dividing his essence into the duality, which is of course symbolized by the lunar gate, the entrance and exit way to and from this realm of purgatory, this soul trap, this cosmic amusement park, that itself is re-establishing the fact that it is creating something that is artificial, that is artificiated from the dualistic paradigm, the polarity of what is otherwise a singularized essence. I hope that makes sense. It is extremely important in a very deep manner. So I think we'll leave it there for this episode, and I'll pick it up on the next episode. We didn't get through quite a lot of the notes there, but I rambled on quite a bit. But really, it provides you a great overview of the Saturn-moon matrix as well.
Anybody else besides me feel as if time is speeding up, or has sped up, I should say? Like, things really feel off, don't they? They really do. Like, things just feel really off. Like, let this sink in. We are already halfway through the current year. And it seems like this year just started. And the weather seems like it's confused. Like, it really does. Like, everything just feels off. It really does. I know I can't be the only one that feels like this. That just everything feels strange. Nothing feels real anymore. Holidays don't even feel the same. Like, nothing feels the same anymore. People feel fake. Like, just everything just feels weird. The vibes just feel different. Does anyone else feel like this, or am I the only one?